Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Unlocking Tampa Bay. I am your host, Brian Burns, and joined once again by our fabulous co-host, Molly Barbieri.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back.
Thanks, Molly, for coming back for another episode with us. This is episode 4 for the new Unlocking Tampa Bay podcast.
Yes.
Number 3 for you, as you made me do the first one solo because you were on PTO. But
I would say I'm sorry, but I'm not.
yeah, you have no reason to be sorry. But we're plugging right along here. We have a guest that we've actually been very excited to have on the podcast. Our guest is Sean Walton Guest. He is a influencer / content creator from the UK, from Manchester specifically. I wanted to ask you about specifically the influencer tag. Is that something that, because that kind of has like a bit of maybe a negative connotation when people say influencer. So do you like to be called influencer, or do you prefer something else?
I think, yeah, it's difficult because sometimes that's got negative connotations attached to it. But I think a lot of people in this industry do so many things, so many tags do apply. But I feel like content creator covers the most of it.
Yeah.
Because obviously you have got the videography side of it, the photography side of it. I've also got my website, so I've got the written side of it as well.
Yep.
So I feel like content creation in all various mediums is the best way to sum it up. But influencer, content creator, blogger.
All right, we'll call you content creator.
Yeah.
And you've been in our market for the last, you're wrapping up what we call a FAM here, which is a familiarization tour. And that's where we bring in a content creator, a media type, someone to come in and experience our destination. We set them up with hotel, we set them up with different restaurants to try, different attractions. You're at the end of your FAM tour here with Visit Tampa Bay. You came in late Thursday night, a bit jet lagged, but you had
jet lag. I think I still am.
We set you up at the hotel floor. You had dinner there that night at the Dan, and then we had a whole itinerary of things to experience, attractions to see here in the Tampa Bay market. And now you're at the end of that little escapade, I guess you could say. And you're about to fly off to another destination, or actually Uber off. But we just kind of wanted to see, what is this like from the perspective of someone that's coming into the market? I believe this was your first time in Tampa, correct?
Yes, first time.
So you're from the UK. You've been to the United States a handful of times. Never been. I know you told me last night when we had dinner that you had been to Miami. The first time in Tampa. And just kind of wondering, maybe what was your perception of Tampa before you came here, and then kind of get your idea of what it is now that you've had a chance to experience it.
Okay. Well, before I came here, I didn't really have much knowledge about Tampa at all. My knowledge was limited to I'd met representatives from Tampa in the UK at various travel events, but also specifically I'd seen Tampa sponsor LGBTQ travel events and conferences. So that gave me my initial perception that actually this is a place that I should look at as an LGBTQ content creator to see what it has available for travelers, especially when you think about Florida as a wider state and the challenges it has for LGBTQ people. If there is a destination that's going to be very welcoming and open and inclusive, I want to know more. So that was like the initial thought I had in my head.
Right.
And then I wanted to come and see if that was really the case.
And what was what's your takeaway, I guess, after having experienced it?
I've had a very positive experience. I felt very calm and relaxed at ease all around Tampa, and especially being able to experience Ebor or gay bar, as it's more affectionately known, and going to a couple of the gay bars, but also not just the gay bars in Ebor, but seeing that a lot of the businesses around there have these stickers on their door saying, against homophobia, against discrimination. I can't remember the specific terming that they use, but seeing those stickers on different businesses, whether it was cafes or restaurants, it just tells you that you can take a moment, you're safe, you're in a welcoming environment, and that is really important, just seeing those little things.
Yeah. And so you would say you felt welcome the whole time that you were here, because Florida as a whole does get kind of that perception that maybe it's not that way. And I know Tampa Bay and Visit Tampa Bay specifically wants to reiterate that we are welcoming to all people, to all lifestyles. So that's important for us to bring in someone that is LGBTQ plus, influencer that can come in and experience what our destination has to offer and feel comfortable and kind of relay that to their audience.
Because I had no knowledge prior, I didn't really set myself any expectations. But the experience that I have had has been I really enjoy being out of nature, doing the paddle boarding. Yesterday, it sounds so simple, but yesterday taking a rental bike from Tampa Riverwalk Rentals and just going along the coast
Nice
by
plug, by the
myself.
way.
Hey,
Nice plug, by
nice
the way.
plug. I know how to do that. Yeah, going all the way along Bayshore Boulevard and up the Riverwalk. It was just, I just thoroughly enjoyed it, and everything was so beautiful. And I mean, it's December. I'm not used to sun and happiness in December.
Yeah, I'm sure you're not wearing a tank top in
Exactly.
Manchester right now in December.
Exactly. Just having that experience was just perfect for me. And then there's been enough activities to fill 4 days easily.
Yeah.
I've been very, very busy. And I'm sure there's even more to do.
Well, Molly did a very good job handcrafting, curating that
Yes.
itinerary for you.
The
She's been in
itinerary.
charge of doing the itineraries here over the last couple of
Yes.
weeks, and she had a really big part in making sure that it was full for you. There was plenty more that we could have piled onto your plate if we really wanted to like break you, but
No,
We weren't going to do that.
It was perfect.
Okay.
And like every activity I enjoyed that I did, whereas I've been on itineraries before, and you know, sometimes they whack a museum in there. And personally, for me, that's just not my interest.
Yeah.
I much prefer outdoors, adventure, nature, animals, and that's exactly what I've experienced and seen here.
So, all right, let's get into then Tampa Bay, the destination. Just, we got a little bit of your overall impressions, but maybe, give us some of your favorites. What were some of the best things that you did while you were here? I know we talked yesterday and you said the Pearl was your favorite restaurant that you ate at.
Okay, yeah.
We ate at Ash last night. I didn't ask you after, if you thought that meal was better than the Pearl, but would you still put the Pearl at the top of the list as far as the restaurants that you ate at?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, it's hard to say specifically because I can only go on the meal that I had.
Right.
But
And it could have been what you picked, or whether
specifically
that place had an off night or not.
The meal in the Pearl was the hanger steak, pineapple marinated with kimchi rice.
Okay.
And that was so good.
Delicious. Huh?
Yeah, really, really particularly good. I mean, to be fair, every single meal that I've had here has been really good.
Like you would go back to each of the restaurants if you came back to Tampa.
Yeah, definitely. Like the one last night, the Italian.
Yeah, Ash.
Yeah.
That was down in Water Street. Newer restaurant owned by the same group that owns Rooster and the Till, which happens to be my favorite restaurant. Shout out Rooster and the Till. If you want to give me a discount sometime, just let me know. But yeah, really good restaurant. We had a great experience there last night. And then you got to see kind of that Water Street area, which is a very new area in Tampa. Probably within the last 5 years, it's really built up.
I think really in the past 2, honestly. That's when the restaurants, I think, yes, in the past 5 years, that was kind of when the idea had
The bones were being
had kind of started.
Yeah.
But then over the past 2 years, that's when all of the restaurants started opening, and that's when
the Edition
draw
came online.
Yes, the first 5-star hotel in Tampa, and that was really when the draw started, you know, kind of happening.
So in a previous life, I worked for the Tampa Bay Lightning, which was right there, kind of at the epicenter of Water Street. And in 2014, when I first started working there, those were all just grass fields. That's where we parked for game days. That's where people
difference.
would And now you have high rises and fancy hotels and restaurants coming out. So really just an area that's reinvented itself. Other activities, things that you did. I know you just got back from Busch Gardens. You said you had a good time there.
That was a good for like a thrill experience. And I think Busch Gardens would be good if you are on a jet lag day and you need something to snap you out of it.
Yeah,
Yes, obviously
that'll get the adrenaline going.
Yeah. I mean, so did the Bay Rocket as well. Like flying around in a speedboat. Because I did it in the afternoon, and the afternoons was the time that I was starting to get a bit jet lagged and tired.
We were in Ybor and we had just eaten, and I think we were kind of sitting out in the sun, definitely a little bit getting tired.
I was starting to space out a little bit.
Yeah, but
it wasn't your company, it was me.
It's okay. It's the same way. It was the food. We were relaxed.
I had a lot of tacos. So yeah, that was good for the afternoon also. But I think my favorite thing, which sounds kind of relatively basic, was yesterday just hiring a bike and going off on my own down the Bayshore Boulevard, because it was so beautiful. It was perfectly sunny, so I was like getting a little bit of tan in the sun. I had my music in, so I was like singing my little heart out. And then I like stopping by, like seeing the manta rays in the water as well, which was cool. And it just felt good and happy and energized, and just I was like, this is great.
Yeah,
I could have just continued going further on the coast if I didn't have to come back for dinner. But that was definitely a highlight. And then taking it up after Bayshore Boulevard, the Riverwalk as well, which is very pretty.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I think that's my favorite experience, just being nothing too technical or crazy, just quite simple and enjoy
having that little bit of time for yourself and experiencing it on your own. And I think that's something that we try to incorporate into our itineraries, is a little bit of time to do some exploration on your own. We're not saying to you like, okay, you're going to go to this destination, then you're going to go to this destination, have it all mapped out, but also give you some time to kind of explore the area on your own and find maybe something that we're not thinking of that you're going to really like, and you just kind of find it on your own.
Yeah, definitely.
What I want to go back to the Bay Rocket real quick, because I've never experienced that. I'm not exactly sure what it does. Like, I have an idea of what it does in my head, but like, take us through like a ride. What exactly do they do?
It's just they take you out to a certain distance where they can then floor it.
So you're going really fast.
Yeah. That's the eye.
And does it like spin? Does it do like really sharp turns?
It's going really fast, and then there's like 180-degree turns, or I think it even did a 360 turn.
Yeah.
Like, you really felt the engine like grind into the wall to make that happen. But yeah, it just obviously it's a thrill ride on the water, basically. And on the way out, we did see dolphins and things like that. So it is possible that it can also be a little dolphin tour as well.
Yeah.
If you're lucky. And then you can see all the mansions and expensive houses on the way out.
Right.
So you are getting a little bit of a tour of the bay, plus then this thrill ride at when you're a little bit further out to sea.
Oh, so it's kind of like all encompassing. You get the thrill ride, you get the tour, you get the marine life. Is there anything else that you'd like to ask?
Yes, I would love to talk more about. So you have the content that you did for, social media, and you're going to have the more general encompassing blog post about what to do in Tampa, but you're also planning to do that content that's more focused LGBTQ and that kind of gay guide. So would you want to talk about that a little bit, and what you kind of your perspective was on
that? For me, that's the most important element of my content, because I do specifically focus on gay travel, LGBTQ travel, and that is what makes up most of my audience. And so when I'll be putting a piece of content together that I'll showcase Ybor as the gay bar area, give some recommendations on like the bars to go to and what experience that is, but also just talk more widely about how I felt in the destination. And I think what's important, I think it's just a really important aspect for people to be aware of, whether they're LGBTQ or not, because even if you're an ally, surely you want to be in spaces where people are respectful of diversity and inclusion. And that's something that I've seen and experienced in Tampa. So that will be reflected in my content, and hopefully it will give other people confidence to consider coming, because if you do just look at Florida as a state, like we mentioned at the start, some people would just write it off and say, no, it's not for me. But that isn't the right approach, because there are solid, good places doing the right thing, despite what might be going on around them, and despite there might be pressure that I'm not even aware of from the wider state. I don't know, but despite all that, having places like Tampa that is making sure there is a safe space still available needs and deserves shouting about and some attention. And I think especially because you also have access to other LGBTQ friendly destinations within Florida, such as St. Pete, Orlando, what is it, like a few hours to Miami?
Yeah, it's about like 4-hour
Fort
drive
Lauderdale.
to Miami.
So for any like travelers coming from the UK or Europe or wherever, in fact, they could easily spend a few days in Tampa, then move on somewhere else and still have a very good, positive LGBTQ travel experience without all the stresses that can come from going to other places where you're unsure.
Yeah.
I want to try and take away a little bit of the guesswork here, because when I go to plan a trip, it's the first thing I have to think about is safety. It's not about the hotel, the activities. First, it has to be a safety check. And that's not the most positive way to start your vacation planning.
No, definitely not the most
So if I can take away a bit of the guesswork and get rid of that and say, actually, no, you're good, just go straight onto the fun stuff and get going, then I'm happy.
Yeah.
But also, and then making sure, like, for our perspective, like Tampa is one of those places that you would want to include in your itinerary when you're coming to Florida with these other destinations that are also inclusive and welcoming.
Yeah, and the fact that obviously you have the airport right here, so it makes sense that you would start in Tampa, fly into Tampa, spend a few days here, and then you could move elsewhere if you needed to.
Any big plans for 2025? Do you have any? I know we're trying to potentially get you back here in March for Tampa Pride, so we'd love to have you back here, and hopefully we can make that work out. But do you already have 25 booked, or maybe the start of it, or is it something where like maybe a couple weeks out you start to get?
It's a mix. A lot of the work that I do is often quite last minute.
Yeah.
But I've got a lot of conversations on the go for next year, but nothing actually definitely booked in. I know that I'm going to Chicago next year for IPW US Travel Conference. So I'll be there. I actually did book a personal trip for myself in January.
Oh, love that. Where are you going?
So I'm flying to New York, spending a few days there with friends, and on to Puerto Rico and spending 10 days there, and then back to the UK. But I just found ridiculously cheap flights. So I just very impulsively booked it last week. So I'm excited for that. And again, like 2 really good destinations that I speak highly of. So I'm excited to revisit them. And perhaps the most exciting conversation I've got on the go for next year is going on a cruise to the Arctic. Because earlier this year I did Antarctica with Swan Hellenic, the cruise company. So it would be good to then do the Arctic up north.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool.
So then I've done both. So that's a conversation on the go, and it's exciting because then I could see polar bears.
Ooh,
very nice.
Interesting.
Have you been to all 7 continents?
Yes, now.
Oh, what a bucket list thing.
As of February being Antarctica, because part
That
of
was
the
the
cruise,
last one, Antarctica.
you can step onto the continent itself. So that was just...
Wow, what a bucket list item to like visit all 7 continents.
Antarctica was my number 1 bucket list of all time leading up to it. So when that came about and came to fruition, I was very happy.
Oh, I can imagine.
And that's interesting to me, even with all of the travel that you're doing, like when you have some time off, you're still going to do like your own vacation where you go to Puerto Rico for 10 days or whatever. So you don't really spend much time in Manchester.
I'll still do content as well, though.
Yeah.
I know I will.
Well, just for yourself, honestly.
Yeah. I don't spend much time at Manchester. I spent more time there this year, to be honest.
Yeah.
But yeah, and generally it's come and go all the time.
Always out of a suitcase.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I should just become nomadic.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, why not?
No rent.
It's tempting. There is definitely positives and negatives to being nomadic.
Yeah, definitely.
Like when I did the 2 years traveling away from home, that was being nomadic.
Yeah.
And it did actually get really exhausting towards the end.
Yeah.
Not having a base, constantly repacking and being on the move,
right,
did take its toll. It was very exciting for the first period, but then after a certain point in time,
it can be
tolling. I just want like my own sofa and a cup of tea and my Netflix.
Yeah.
Like a home base where you can just kind of decompress and relax instead of trying to figure out your next trip, your next project, and also the next place you're going to stay.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you even put your suitcase away when you go home, or does it just always stay out?
Yeah, I do put it away.
You do?
I put everything in the wash straight away, get it all done. I don't like to leave it out for ages.
There you go. He's a pro.
I am not that person.
I like a tidy house.
If I come back from a trip, my clothes they'll be separated.
Okay.
Dirty and clean, but they will be sitting in that suitcase for a good week.
Oh, really?
I think we still have a suitcase out from Thanksgiving that we still haven't put away, but I digress.